good afternoon, and welcome to Heart, a program that aims to help you understand and to become your loving self at KMET 1490 AM ABC Radio Live. Sorry, I'm kind of stumbling on my words today. Okay. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist. As part of what I do more is research about human sexual health care. And I have dealt a lot about, patients that they don't know where to go and talk about their sexually related issues. For those of you who are interested to know about my research activities, please go to ResearchGate and then type my name, Mitra Rashidian, and you can see my profile about my sexual healthcare research activities and publications. So glad to have you here. And with me today, as usual, I have my very best mentor for the past 17 years, my colleague, my business partner, and above all, my best friend, Dr. Robert Jaffe, who is also a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified hypnotherapist. And I will ask him to please to say more about himself. And before he joined us, he's here, of course, you can see him on the screen. I want to thank you for giving us your hour, and I know you have many choices to choose from, and we thank you for choosing us. Dr. Robert Jaffe, we are here one more time. It's a blessing to be able to do this and offer what we know, our knowledge, and share that with our with the world, basically. Right?
Yes, hopefully the world is listening. If you're listening, welcome world. I want to say that I am honored and privileged to be here with my colleague, my business partner, my best friend, and she is wonderful.
Thank you,
Dr. Mitra Rashidian. And so we're here in our little fan club, fanning over each other. And
this is our fan club,
this
right?
This is our fan club, right?
Consists of two and all of you out there.
Okay. Yes, and so I am so blessed to have this as a career, because it's also a passion of mine to help understand what makes human beings tick, and what makes human beings feel good, and what makes human beings feel happy.
Right.
I mean, that's what we're all here to do, is to try to feel as happy as we can as much of the time as possible. And so what I've learned over many years, and the many are increasing, many years of study and practice, is that we are pretty much born in a pretty good place. We're born as our loving, authentic, true selves, and we come in with some wonderful qualities. And then what happens is the world happens, and things start to come up and get in our way. They get in our way emotionally, they get in our way psychologically. And so as we learn what those things are and how to remove the blockers that keep us from being our loving, authentic, true self, we can return to that, I'm not going to say ideal state, but a happy state.
Right.
That state where we're just joyous to be here. And so that's what we talk about in these 2 hours. This hour is on human sexuality and relationships. The next hour is on addictions and trauma, as well as relationships.
And codependency.
And codependency, right.
Yes.
And so it's interesting material to talk about. We're very interested in hearing your comments or questions. We would love for you to call us. Our number is 951-922-3532. And if you don't choose not to call us, but you still want to communicate with us, you can do so by just checking on our KMET website.
Exactly.
And we will be happy to communicate.
And we are on Facebook. You can reach us at KMET Facebook to collect our private contact information, as well as you can see us on our Facebook, Heart to Heart. It's Heart, T-O, Heart, and counseling, and then you can reach us there. And basically, you can find us easily online, and we are happy to be here for you with the questions that you have. And, that's what we do. That's why we are here. That's why we are offering this program to you. 951-922-3532. We are also on YouTube. So now that we have taken care of this, I heard today that, I've been hearing this for the past few days, that the rate of COVID is increasing in California in general.
Yes. Yes.
And in particular, in Southern California. And we have seen cases of Delta COVID here in LA. And basically what we hear is, this is among the primarily group of people who have not been vaccinated yet.
Not been vaccinated, yes.
So we understand that, they are belief system. We understand they are perhaps experiences that prevents many people to trust the system and to do that.
Exactly.
Right. And bottom line is that, health is something that so valuable, so essential to our well-being. And however you're deciding for yourself, just think of that your decision also impacts so many other people, whether you decide to get your vaccinations or don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
it affects you in both ways.
In both ways, yeah.
Yeah, and so we are actually blessed that we live in a time when we have science and we can come up with vaccines. Vaccines have saved so many lives over the centuries, the past century, especially, with the polio vaccine and the measles vaccine and all of these vaccines that have prevented so much needless suffering and death. And this is another one of them. And yes, this vaccine was developed quickly, which I want to address. Because just because it was developed quickly does not mean that they cut corners.
Yes.
And I've done some of the research, and there are many people who've done some of the research, and they have been very, very meticulous in the way that they have developed this. And people who take the vaccine are people who are covered in the high 90% from getting the virus. And also, if they do get the virus, it's not 100% effective, but it's high in the 90s, which is a great odds.
Right.
If we went to Vegas and got 90% odds, we'd all be there. But even if you get it, you're not going to get it as seriously. And so this is very, very important. And I really want to urge everyone to, if you've thought about not getting it or you haven't gotten it, please reconsider, not just like you were saying, Dr. Rashidian, not just for your own safety, but you're not going to be spreading it if you do have it.
Right.
And so it's very, very important to get the vaccine.
Right, it is. This is a decision that, it needs to be an informed one. You need to be really, I think it's best to understand why you're doing it and why you're not doing it. And just think that, like I said, any decision that we make, whether to have the vaccination or not, is going to impact, at least to say the least, begins with ourselves and, whether we're going to stay healthy or not. And then also how our decision of taking it or not taking it is going to impact the people that they are around us, right? And this is a very important factor. We're not just looking at, what works for me here. It's also how am I impacting my loved ones. Today, we're seeing cases about children. Today, we're seeing cases that, couples, one wants to have the vaccination, one doesn't want to have the vaccination. And that tremendously has caused, a number of problem, which has unfortunately brought up so many underlying, hidden problems, in their lives. And, their life from being a loving couple on the surface has now become, a hell life for them at home because of, and real other relationships, because one is deciding not to have the vaccines, and their beliefs is not that, you know, what they say is not valid. At the same time, sometimes with all the validation, we still need to look at a much bigger, picture of our decisions to not to take vaccine. In other words, there is this terminology, in psychology, we say, and instead of having a tunnel vision, let's just go to panoramic vision,
Right,
you
right,
know.
right. Yeah, and I have a very good friend who actually was thinking about not taking the vaccine, and and I asked him why, and he said, well, he's not sure that it's not going to have long-term negative effects.
Right.
And I said to him, well, if
But
that
that
there's,
is a
well,
permanent effect.
I
Yeah.
said to him, well, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
There's always that possibility. I said, but what we know now is that in the short term, you are going to have very negative effects if you get ill from the
Right.
vaccine, especially as we get older, which I am and my friend is. And I said, so it's a possibility, but it's not a probability that that's going to happen, and it's a probability that if you don't get the vaccine and you get the virus, you will get very ill.
Yes, the cases that have been now showing the sudden increase, I guess LA County reported that now they have at least 2,000 of hospital admission again.
Mm.
And that was to me alarming. And I'm hearing from my friends, abroad, that in places like Australia, where it was, they had, clearance and everything was fine, suddenly then they're not getting, not only their regular COVID, but they're seeing increase in Delta COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So now they are in a state of panic. Then the Australian government, they don't even allow people to travel between cities now.
Right.
So they are kind of trapped in their own corner, each person. And then in other parts, I heard that, couples who were traveling with their children to go on vacation, I mean summer vacation here, and children got COVID during flight, and then parents got the COVID.
Yes. Yes.
So now we see that even children, it was believed at the beginning that they don't get, COVID, we see that that is not true. So I'm glad to hear that children are now being, approved for vaccination.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But then again, as we know, they are a group of people that, because they don't believe in that.
Right.
They don't want vaccination, not only for themselves, but they don't want them.
Right.
They don't want it for children.
Right.
And they do, schooling through Zoom and everything, and that's fine. I mean, there is nothing wrong with that. But then again, unfortunately, it puts, again, themselves and people around them
at risk.
At risk. Right.
So what do we got for today? And we talked about the vaccine quite a bit so far.
Yeah.
What do we got today after our commercial break?
So I was going to bring that to the issue of therapy and why therapy can help this situation. But then again, we see there are lots of myths and there are lots of conflict about therapy as well.
Oh, okay.
We touched on that a little bit the last time. We're going to continue with the rest of that.
Great. Okay.
All right.
So we'll see you in a moment after our commercial break, and please stay with us.
Absolutely. Afternoon beginning at 3:00 p.m. Join us. Welcome back from our commercial break. This is a Heart to Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio Live. Dr. Rashidian and Dr. Robert Jaffe here offering you a program about human sexual health care. And then for those of you who are just joining us, we just touched base a little bit before the commercial break about the updated COVID situation and the importance of vaccination. And then now we're going back to our topic, which is about the facts and the myths about having therapy. And the reason I'm staying with this for now, we did it the last time and this time, because there's so much misconception about what therapy is and what makes some people to join therapy and some people decide not to do that, even though it's much needed. And I believe that it's much needed for everybody, whether you believe there is an issue going on or not. It is about personal growth. It is about taking care of yourself. It is about self-love, self-compassion. And what's the better thing in life than having personal growth and getting to know yourself better? Because after all, it's you that you wake up in the morning, and it's you that you go through life every day. It's you that you go to sleep every night. So it's you and your selfhood, your authentic true self that runs you. So why not get to know that?
Right. So what do you say then to someone who says, what do you mean when you say know myself? I know myself. I use myself as an example. Well, I know myself. I'm a man. I know I'm a man. I know that I'm 71 years old. I know that I weigh X number of pounds. I know that I'm this tall. I know that I like chocolate ice cream. I know that I do this for my work. I know that I have children. I know that I have grandchildren. I know myself. What do you say to that?
Say, are you happy?
That's a good question.
Are you happy? Are you happy with everything that you do in life? Are you happy in your relationship? Are you happy with your job? Are you happy with how the life goes on for you? Mm-hmm. Are you happy about your choices? Are you happy about just about every aspect of your life? If the answer to that is yes, well, congratulations. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But if the answer to any part of it is, well, let me see, let me think about it, or no, then there is something for you to look at. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right?
And then what if I say, well, who's happy all the time? Nobody's happy all the time. There you go. We're happy sometimes and we're sad sometimes.
Well, that is true. Mm-hmm. However, this unhappiness, what are they about for the individuals? Mm-hmm. It's what I'm unhappy about is different from what you're unhappy about. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, we have a shared aspect, but in general, we have our own viewpoint toward, and you have your own viewpoint toward. Mm-hmm. With that comes, how judgmental are we about ourselves, and how judgmental are we about the people around us, and how judgmental are we about the society. Mm-hmm. So when we say, well, everybody has problems, that's a judgmental fact. We don't know everybody to begin with. Mm-hmm. We don't even know half of the people, in the world. We only know some people who we interact with, mm-hmm. whether that's through job or through family interaction or friends, but we are very limited in general, about how many people we know. Some people who have like million followers, do you really know them? Uh-huh. Those are not friends. Those are just social media, contacts.
Right. Right. So then what can you say more about how to get to know yourself?
How to get to know yourself, So when I say that, so you need to ask yourself, how do you talk to yourself, for example? One aspect of getting to know yourself is, what kind of a self-talk do you have? Do you get up and usually you're complaining, you have negative talks or negative, self-talk, or do you get up and you're just happy and jolly all the time? Mm-hmm. Majority of people who come to therapy, they say, I don't know how to get rid of these negative thoughts. Mm-hmm. They're just always haunting me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then those negative thoughts also seem to be so logical, so that they mean, how can I not think about this? How can I not talk about what my parents do? How can I not think about what my husband or my wife does, or where my children are? How do I not think negatively about how my boss is treating me, and why my colleague gets promotion when they don't have half of my expertise and experiences, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Aren't these negative thoughts? Mm-hmm. These are fact of life, yes, mm-hmm. but they are negative view of them, mm-hmm. right? It is as though, we become a victim in this society, and everybody else is, the ones who get the good part of the cake, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? So when we get up, thinking like that, and then we go to bed thinking the same, obviously, these negative talks, they don't give us a good view of life to us. Mm-hmm. They're not putting us in a happy place. I mean, do we not get through life challenges? Oh, Lord knows, I have been, I have had my share of challenges.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, many people that I know, my clients, they are my clients because they have gone through many life challenges,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
However, when challenges come in, and then we add our own belief system, negative perception, negative outlook, negative fear of negative, negative feelings. When we put that on top of the challenged situation,
Mm-hmm.
right? What are we doing? Problem solving? Are we taking care of ourselves? Are we able to, go through the challenge and figure it out? you know
Right.
and actually we're not, because for as long as we have negative, emotions and feelings about a given situation, our creativity doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
We don't become curious about what can I do to get out of this,
Mm-hmm.
right? We stay with it. As a matter of fact, we become part of the problem. It is as though, I am the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But when we don't have negative thoughts. Instead, we look at this given situation and say, okay, this is the problem that has happened. This is the problem that it's about, choices I made, or a situation that's out of my control, but it is impacting me now,
Mm-hmm.
right? So here's the problem, okay, and then let me see what I can do for this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And part of what I can do for this, if I don't have the right tools and the right education and the right perspective, but I know that this is a problem that I need to solve, that's when I go for consultation, depending what the problem is.
So what are some of the myths about therapy that we want to talk about?
So people think that, when they come to therapy, first of all, it's all about crazy people.
Mm-hmm.
So we said in the last time that, I haven't come across the word crazy in any psychology book.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, crazy is also a slang that, people use to kind of demean a person
Mm-hmm.
when they have a differences of something,
Right.
Anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? At the same time, also crazy has been, a label on people that usually they have psychotic features, such as, schizophrenia or things of high magnitude psychotic features,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because people don't know what to do with them, and then how to communicate with these people, or what kind of a treatment they need. So before they realize there is something going on with this person that's not normal, and they need help, right? So instead of offering them help, they call them crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So crazy really doesn't define anything.
Mm-hmm.
Also, crazy, we say I'm crazy about you. So does that mean that, there's something wrong with me when I say, or somebody who says that I'm crazy about you,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely could mean that there's something wrong with you.
There could be something wrong with
if you are crazy about me.
But don't take that as a fact, about you.
Yeah, and actually,
So see, that was a perfect example of a negative thought.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yeah.
there is something wrong with you if you're crazy about me.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
There was actually an old Groucho Marx show.
Right.
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 Groucho Marx was an old-time comedian in the 40s and I think 30s beyond, and he part of the Marx Brothers. He had a show called You Bet Your Life. It was a very funny show, and he used to say, any club that would have me as a member, I would not want to be a member of.
Yes.
And so that's
That is a negative thought.
It's a negative thought. But
See
it's funny.
how
But it's
horrible I am that I can't deserve to anybody to
but
be
it's a
crazy
thought
about me.
that a lot of people have about themselves because people don't recognize how special they are.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And special in terms of uniqueness. That yes, we all have things that that we're not good at, physical things, emotional things, psychological things, but we also have gifts.
Yes.
Every one of us comes to Earth with gifts. And unfortunately, some people don't know that they have gifts and don't discover their gifts. so they think of themselves as not being as good as.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's I think a lot of what the negative thoughts are.
Yeah. So measuring up yourself against somebody else.
Or against some ideal.
Or some idea, right?
Some
Or
ideal.
comparing yourself. So these are some of the, some of the behaviors and beliefs that we learn as we grow up. If our parents, in the name of motivation, they compared us to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
When in adulthood we're going to compare ourselves to somebody else. The fact that I think my boss is treating, my colleague differently, or my colleague, is better than me. That's why, he or she got promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I start feeling bad about myself because with all of my hard work, I'm not getting the promotion. This is all negative thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what happens when we have negative thoughts? We have different reactions,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we know today, and you and I have talked about this a lot with one of our other colleagues and friends, that we know negative thoughts has only three places to go.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
One is, you get sick, so it goes in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The other one is that the person may do self-sabotaging behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's say in terms of colleague, what happens? So you get, you kind of become sarcastic with your colleagues. Indirectly you say things to say that, what, you didn't really deserve that promotion, but you say that sarcastically. Or what did you do to get the promotion?
Mm-hmm.
So we become like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then ruin your friendship, ruin your, trust within your colleagues, or have a drink, or overeat, or do something, right? And then the other one is, the third one is, is to project on somebody that's the closest person to you in life.
Mm-hmm.
Project
Right.
your anger, project your negativity, project your discomfort, project your anything that's not working for you, make it their fault.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And so those are very interesting things for our audience, I think, to recognize, is that these are where negative feelings can go if they're not understood and resolved within yourself.
Right.
So when you have negative feelings, the negative feelings are guilt, negative feelings are shame, negative feelings of fear.
Mm-hmm.
These feelings get internalized and go against your body, make you sick, or give you symptoms as though you're sick. They lower your immune system, which can leave you open to opportunistic illness,
right,
as well as the things that you said, the projection onto the people closest to you, the negativity, as well as the self-sabotage. And people can often self-sabotage themselves in many ways. One way that I've done it is I keep myself disorganized, or have kept myself disorganized, so that when I need something, I have to spend a long time looking for it, and then I get frustrated with myself because it's not where it needs to be, so that I can find it, and it's just a way of self-punishing. And I think a lot of people do things, if not like that, but in other ways, misplacing keys and even things like that. So it's very important that we understand why we do those things, because unless we understand why we do those things, it just keeps happening.
And I want to thank you for being so brave and so open and transparent to talk about yourself here.
Well, you're welcome.
Seriously, I mean, that's a lot. That says a lot about you. Thank you for that.
Sure.
And about negative thoughts that's been projected, to our loved ones. For example, I have this couple that the husband always believes, the wife is at fault.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, and after all the intervention that I gave him, and I thought, okay, well, this is this, and I realized nothing's working,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I brought up the issue of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what do you know about curiosity? And then he said, I don't have to be curious. I know everything. I said, oh, I hit the, hit the target, So it turned out that, his negativity and all the false belief about himself,
Mm-hmm.
he never even learned how to be curious in his life growing up.
Right.
And if somebody is not curious, about anything, they would be a good blamers. And I think everybody else's fault, except instead of looking at themselves to say, how am I contributing to this situation? So you see, negative thoughts are not always apparent, or we can always say, okay, you're angry or any of that. Sometimes they're so hidden inside of us and they drive us that, unless, we get to a point in therapy that we can identify those hidden, negative thoughts, they're not going to come out.
30 seconds.
So there is so much, in therapy that can help people to understand themselves, and this is the beginning of growth. This is why it's so promoted. This is why it's so needed, especially in this COVID, where couples are face to face together most of the time, 24 hours.
Right.
So let's talk more about this after our commercial break.
See you soon.
Welcome back from our commercial break. You're listening live to Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC Radio Live. And Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here offering you a program on human sexual health care. And we're talking about the importance of therapy, in particular during this difficult time of COVID and what it does to couples. This is what we're going to start talking about now. And we would like to hear from you. Please call us at 951-922-3532 or call us privately, whichever works for you. And we understand that some of these questions and, the thinking and everything that you have, inside of you, you may not feel comfortable to, to bring it up, during a live program, even though we highly promote that because your question helps thousands and thousands and thousands of other people, if not millions of people, because they may have the shared situation going on with them. So, but we understand that. So we're going to be talking about, what is sex therapy at this point and why sex therapy is important.
Oh, okay.
Right, that's a form of therapy, right?
It's a form of therapy, yes.
So I'm sharing this information from the International Society for Sexual Medicine. And they recently published an article to talk about the importance of sex therapy as part of, general therapy. Basically, sex therapy is a form of counseling that that aims to help individuals and couples to resolve sexual difficulties such as performance anxiety and their relationship issues, because when sexual relationships is not on a happy part, it basically it impacts all aspects of relationship among couples. Right, you and I are writing this book about that, right?
We're writing the book, the title of which is Not Tonight, Honey, I Have a Headache.
Yes.
And we talk in that book extensively about male and female sexuality and relationships, and what brings people closer to having not just a great relationship, but also great sex, and also what gets in their way and how to resolve it.
Basically, that's what we're doing, and it's a very to begin with, it's a very fun book to read. It's very informative, it's very easy written, and
it's not out yet.
It's not out yet, but I can't wait for it to get published. And but I tell you, after all this hard work that you and I have put into this book, I think it's gonna be one of the best sellers. And I think it's a book that every couple should have a copy.
From your mouth to the publisher's ears.
Yes, it will happen. It will happen. We're talking about not having negative thoughts.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, because when we have negative thoughts, it kind of clouds our brain, we don't think clearly. We become into the fear zone instead of creative zone.
Exactly.
Right. And we don't want any of that. We want to be able to create. We want to be able to explore. We want to be able to do problem solving, to grow, to better understanding ourselves.
Correct.
Right. That's what you and I do.
That's
right?
what we
Pretty much,
do, and that's what we try to help people.
Exactly. So why sex therapy is needed? Because there are the difficulty in sexual relationships, and some of that the difficulty is about problems with sexuality, or not understanding yourself, or not knowing exactly who you are as a sexual being, which something not abnormal, because none of us, or most of us, we're not growing up with ample or appropriate or deep level of education about what is sexuality to begin with. Right? None of us have been trained in that. So and then but definitely we have received lots of shame about it. Therefore that shame and guilt and the sinfulness about looking at ourselves as a sexual being, what it does to us, it kind of shuts down, it kind of puts that sense of curiosity about ourselves and sexuality in a total back burner of our brain, somewhere that we can't even find it. Right? And then here we have a relationship, and our sexuality kicks in, our desires kicks in, but many of us who are not trained in that, we just go with with how instinct works. Right? And instinct is not about, instinct is just instinct. It's not helping us with our relationship.
Correct. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So when people talk about sex therapy, uninformed people think it's about going in and being instructed on how to have sex.
Yeah.
Where there might be a piece of that if the people are actually having trouble in that area, but it's really more about the feelings and the relationships about the person's sexuality and sexual interactions.
Yes, and we're not advertising about any sex toys either.
Right. Exactly.
Because some people think that when they come here, my office is full of samples for sex toys. And guess what? The last time I had exposure to sex toys myself probably was maybe when I went to this sex toy shop as a training, maybe about, I don't know how many years ago, 20-25 years ago. And I've seen many other colleagues who they just focus on sex toys, and they're promoting that. There's so much on that online that you can read about it, but in this office, actually, at least in this office, in my office, that's not happening. So what I do as part of sex therapy is educating people about the myths about the sexuality, how culture impacts our beliefs about sexuality, and then how to know your sexual self, and how to understand your body and your desires, and because this is something, for many people, knowing about their sexuality is something totally new. It's a new concept, not a concept that has never been touched before. So going by instinct is really different than going by knowledge about your own sexual self into a relationship. And the same thing applies to your partner, this is part of sex therapy. Who you are as a person. How do you believe how did you develop your perceptions and your beliefs about yourself? What do you know about your sexuality? What do you know about sex? And how do you get your education, and how do you go by, how satisfied are you about your performance? How do you feel about your body image? And what are your expectations in your sexual relationship? What do you want? What do you know? I mean, first you need to know what do you know before you know what do you want, right? And then there's so many articles and information online, have sex this way or have sex that way, what kind of a position, oral sex, and all of that. So those are all technicality, and there is nothing wrong with them, right? However, when the fundamental aspect of our sexuality is not known to us, techniques don't work. Techniques can be there just temporary, one-time kind of a deal, you
So
know.
when you say our fundamental aspects of our sexuality, what are you referring to?
So, for example, if you're a female, you know, how do you feel about your femalehood? When you're a male, how do you feel about your malehood? How do you bring that into your sexual relationships? Then, for example, among couples, you know, that when I see some men believes that, you know, their wives or their partners, they just have to be available for them to have sex
Mm-hmm.
when they say that or when they want to have sex,
Mm-hmm.
right? Women have believed, you know, not to talk about their sexual desires. I mean, yes, the newer generation, they're doing that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and thankfully, you know, that they are more open about it. But then again, there is no safe guideline there either to teach them about, you know, how to get to know themselves in a sexual relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right? How much do you feel free to talk about your desires if you know your desires?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel when you have sex? I mean, what kind of a physical experiences do you have? And if you can identify them, you know, what makes sex a more pleasurable experience for you if you know what is a sexual pleasure look like?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So there are so many misconceptions and there is so much unknown factor there. And many people, they just look at porn or they look at these romantic movies and, you know, they think that that's sex. Well, that's a made up sex. That's an image. That's a fantasy. That's something that looks so hot that everybody wants to be a part of that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that, you know, those are actor and actresses and some amazing, you know, producer and, you know, editors and all of that they
Well, I
know
was
how
going to
to
say,
put it
I
together.
was going to say it's edited
Yeah.
because, you know, and I've seen some of the pornographic films, and some of them there's
You're
like a
brave to say that.
well, and I've seen some of the porn, and some of them, I notice that there is like a sequence where sexual things are in progress, and then 2 minutes later I see it repeating itself.
Yeah.
So it's like they've edited what looked like a hot scene, and then they've put that in several places during the whole
Exactly.
half hour
Yeah.
to make it look hot.
Yes.
Even though there's a waning of it at times, and at times during sex, you know, people are more into it and less into it
Yes.
normally. But because it's edited, it shows only the times that they're both really into it.
Exactly. So it's just, you know, it stimulates your brain in a way that you just want to keep, you know, become more attracted to it. But then again, that's not relationship, right? It's just, you know, an image. It's a fantasy. So part of sex therapy is about educating couples about how to communicate with each other. And that communication is not just in a sexual way, right? You need to know your sexuality before you can communicate about it. You need to know the different, how people to have different type of sex before you can perform it, before you can participate in it. You need to know the pros and cons of, you know, some of the risk factor involved in having sex, and then, you know, how to go by taking care of yourself. We think, I mean, people think they know, and then here we have all these, you know, sexual transmitted infections and diseases and unwanted pregnancies and divorce and, you know, fights and arguments happening before, during, and after sex. So that means that, you know, communication is such a crucial part of a happy sex life, happy relationship. And if we don't know about ourselves, if we don't know about our partner, if we can't communicate, you know, our fears, our desires, our do's and don'ts, our negativity, our positivity, in other words, just be ourselves in that relationship, then, you know, we can't communicate, and then sex doesn't happen in a pleasure way, and it just becomes routine. And, you know, who wants routine? Because after a while routine becomes like no sex, right? And the other thing is, women in particular, they have more, or they believe they have more limitations than men in terms of expressing themselves, in terms of, you know, what to do. And some of those that they believe they are out there and with their sexuality and they know what they're doing and they know what they want, when we open it in therapy, they're actually, they don't know why they have gotten to the point that they act the way they do, they perform the way they do, they comply the way they do. And then we see that they had this belief formed for themselves that to be a sexual woman, to be taken in a relationship, they have to be all that. And look at the amount of energy and effort that they put into this to become like that image that they believe that that's how it's supposed to be. So, and then there is another part about, sexual relationship, to recognize domestic violence, to recognize, aggression, to recognize rape. And yes, we do have rape within marriages. So there is more about, unwanted pregnancy. There is so much that, uh, solid sex therapy can help a person. And it's about your interpersonal skills. It's about what do you believe a relationship is, and how do you find yourself, what is your position in the relationship, and is there hierarchy going on, is there, or are you happy in general, are you happy? So you need to ask yourself, are you happy?
And I also want to add that human beings are very complex. And so there's so many subtleties,
Yes.
so many little things that if we knew how to identify them and how to speak about them, it could add immeasurably to our sexual satisfaction in relationships. So that's really one of the big things to me about good sex.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly. So unfortunately, the hour goes by so fast, right?
it
At least
does.
it for me, even by so quickly, and I have so much to say, and that's why I'm grateful that I have another programs coming up next week at 3 o'clock, which I'm highly inviting you to please join us then and next Thursday. However, we have the next hour coming up at 4 o'clock with myself and Dr. Robert Jaffe. So that's when we're talking about codependency, relationship, addictions, and trauma, which are other factors that actually impact our sexuality. So please join us, and I'm looking forward to see you at 4 o'clock coming up shortly.
And remember, all you need is love.
Peace, love. See you at 4 o'clock.
Okay.